had a MySpace or anything like that.
MySpace is another one, though.
Right.
That's true, Chris.
That was the original one, MySpace, and that kind of flourished, and then Facebook has completely taken over lately. I know, if you just Google search a name, then a lot of times Facebook information will pop up. I would assume it'd be the same with MySpace and everything like that. With all the privacy settings, I would hope that there are ways to set it so a simple Google search wouldn't bring up any of your information. I'm sure there are ways to set that.
Are you suggesting, that a parent Google their child's name to see if their child's name appears or there's a YouTube video up that they wouldn't have known?
It's not a bad idea. I mean, like I said, there are so many privacy issues or privacy settings that you can put in place that would prevent that from happening. But a simple search like that, and if it's not Google, if it's something else, maybe it's something a little more invasive, you can at least see what networks they're part of. Like I said, if there's a YouTube video. I know I have a bunch of, if you search my name, there's information from lacrosse scores or stuff like that. Just simple, basic stuff like that, you can start to get a feel for what they're doing.
So
online.
One other tip that we might have for our viewers is if you know your child, you talk to your child and know what your child's interests are, very likely you'd be able to find websites that they are likely to search on. If the child is interested in sports cars, then perhaps there is a sports car, either an association, a network, where the child is either Twittering, following someone, blogging about it, or interested in finding more. And maybe there's no harm in that site, but it's certainly one way for you to get to know a little bit more about where your child is searching. Also, there's history, and unless the child has found a way or knows how to delete all of the history, which isn't a good idea. You really do want to know what the history of your computer activity is. That would be another way of finding out what your child is looking at, perhaps when you're not at home, but hopefully they are using it when you're home.
Another way to look at it is before all the technology. Your kid went out to play. When I was a kid, I went out to play.
Yes.
My parents always wanted to know where I was, who I was with, and if I was going to a friend's house to stay over, they would call the friend's mom or dad and say, is my son there, and is he staying over, and is that okay with you? The technology, as you said, you need to know who your friends are playing, who your kids are playing with on their computers, where they're going. So the searching of the history websites is an excellent idea, just to get an idea of making sure that they're going to appropriate places and not doing things that they shouldn't be doing.
Hot Wheels. I just found it. That was one of the sports car sites. It was said that you might want to consider having no computer in your child's room, but having a family computer in a public arena so that you could watch what they're doing. Is that reasonable these days? Don't most kids have an iPad, an iPhone, and iTunes, some way of just having complete privacy, even if you don't pull the computer out of their room?
Yeah, I mean, especially high school and college kids, it's safe to assume everybody has a cell phone. Most kids have laptops. Most kids are starting to get iPads, stuff like that. Younger kids, however, middle school, I mean, I remember the day my brother and I got our own personal computers in our room, and family time just went out the window. Everyone was separated. We'd come back, and we'd meet for dinner, and we'd all go to our rooms. Even, I mean, my dad was working in his office. My mom was on her laptop checking on whatever she did.
Chris is bringing up another issue that needs to be, well, obviously it says, though, that parents need to be aware of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
They do need to know and need to spend more time and be educated about what you were searching. Yeah. And that gets harder to do, but it also says we need to be doing some of that. Dave?
Yeah, and it's a good point. You're not going to, as a high school or college student, say, we have one computer, you're going to use this one, and we're going to check everything you do,
right,
because you're doing homework on it, among other things. Yeah. At least that's what my daughter tells me she uses it for, and I go and I check. But younger kids, certainly, there's no need to let a 10-year-old take a computer into their room, lock their room, and come out for dinner, if anything. It's not necessary.
Privacy and computer issue relative to who's paying a bill. This may be a legal issue, I'm not sure. Parents are paying the bill for the college student, but the college student is getting his grades online. You, as the parent who's paying, shouldn't you have access to that information? You're paying that bill.
There's federal law that says you don't, unless your child signs a waiver and gives you permission to get the grades or permission to the school to send them to you. Good luck.
And that's the way it stands.
That's the way it is.
And that's not just Rhode Island or Mass.
No,
It's across the board.
It's federal law, much like the HIPAA law with medical information. You can't get your 19-year-old son or daughter's medical information without their permission, even though they're on your Blue Cross or you're paying the bill. I forget the name of the act, but there's an act that makes all information from a college private, and nobody can get it without permission from the student.
So it may not be a legal issue, but perhaps a matter of conduct or ethical issue or something. Are you reasonable in asking your child to give that access, considering there may be a health issue that needs to be shared?
I'll give my perspective, then you can ask Chris. Two things, health or college. If I'm paying for college and my daughter wants me to pay next month's tuition or next semester's tuition, I think it's fair for me to ask her to show me her report card if I want to see that. What do you think?
Is it fair? Absolutely. Do I share it with my parents? No.
Okay.
We have a network. I go to school down in Virginia, and we have our own grade network. Big site,
Yes.
has all our information on it, and there's a button right next to your grades every semester. It says, click this if you'd like this to be visible to your parents. And in the past, I wouldn't have clicked it. These days, I'm getting better, but
There's lots to be said about that.
But I don't think many kids do select that option.
No. And some parents, this is what my father's deal was with me when I was in college, is I'll pay for 4 years. So you get yourself through and out in 4 years, I'm satisfied with that. So as long as you're on line to do it in 4 years, that's what they need to know.
Okay, and then the other issue that we were just broaching, the health issue. So say Chris is a lacrosse player, and something happens to you, and you're not conscious. If Dad has the right to weigh in on what's happened, then he certainly is in an ideal place to share with your provider, unconscious or not, your history, your medical history could save you lots of grief and certainly misdiagnosis. So David, is it, again, more than reasonable to ask to have access to the health information or get that from the college if he's away?
There's a couple of different things there. First of all, if Chris is over 18 and he could sign a medical health care power of attorney to give his parents the right to make decisions if he can't. Anyone over 18 can sign that. If he's in a situation where he can't make decisions and information needs to be given back and forth, the parents, the doctors are going to talk to the parents so they have the history to be able to make the right decisions.
But they won't necessarily tell you, the parent, what's wrong with him?
They may or they may not share that. I think that depends on a doctor's own perspective of what his duties and obligations are.
Important things for parents to be aware of. Do you want to weigh in on that, Chris? We'll put you on the spot a little bit.
I just know that in terms of in college, the NCAA, our first day of lacrosse, we just signed sheets and sheets of papers and everything in terms of waivers, so that all the head trainers and everything have the ability to make those decisions. They know our insurance providers, they've talked to our parents, and if it's a serious emergency, they know they're able to make the decision and talk to our parents later.
Do you think
Good
one
to
of
know.
those documents is to authorize them to talk to your parents?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think that we've covered certainly a lot of issues about security, privacy, the internet, websites, whether you have a young child, a middle-aged child, a high school child, a college-age student. I hope that you've found that this was helpful. We continue to tell you that you can email us for if you would need additional information or would like to ask. Please tune in. We'll be covering wills and trusts as the discussion of legal matters continues.